is a bit disturbing for many of us because
It is disturbing for me too, Mr. Ellis, because I have been in a meeting actually dealing with trying to advance and accelerate the road works, and I am being bombarded with calls that there's certain contractors who are raising concerns about works not being allocated to them. And I felt it necessary to pause my meeting to call in to just clear the air. Now, I appreciate that, we're in an environment where, our road contractors would want to be considered for road works. And I can say to you that certainly Mr. Cherry and I have been in constant contact. I'm sure he will tell you that he messages me on mornings. He messages me whenever he purchases new equipment. He messages me to tell me about all of the works that he's doing in the rest of the islands. And he is also messaged whenever there are outstanding invoices that are due to Mr. Cherry from the Ministry of Transport and Works. And on each occasion, I have reached back out to him and indicated what has been the state of play. And he can tell you no different. As it relates to the Accelerated Mill and Pave program, this program was announced by the Prime Minister just short of maybe 5 weeks ago. She indicated that she wanted contractors who could, again, work very quickly to be able to not only supply the asphalt, but also to be able to work 18-hour days. Now, we would have reached out to two of the main contractors, yes, COW and Infra at the time, because based on the history of the relationship with MTW, they would have been able to supply asphalt when we require it for our paving program. They would also have been in a position, because there are companies that are in the business of road construction on a regular basis, and they would have been ready to be able to mobilize very quickly without any mobilization from the Ministry of Public Works to get the program going. If Mr. Cherry is honest with you, he will indicate that this ministry had reached out to him previously regarding the supply of asphalt, and he was not in a position to supply the asphalt. So that's one. Therefore, for this particular program, if you cannot supply asphalt when the ministry requires it of you, it is clear that you're not going to be able to supply and to be part of the Accelerated Mill and Pave program. Mr. Cherry's concern has always been that he wanted mobilization for the supply of asphalt. And I can say to you that there's no contractor that can tell you in this country that the Ministry of Public Works pays them mobilization for any asphalt that is acquired by them in our paving program. And therefore, if the concern is that Mr. Cherry wants to allege that we are somehow unfairing Black businesses in this country, it is absolute foolishness. Because if you are not in a position to be able to supply the asphalt and to be able to have a fully operational program in terms of roadworks construction, how could we have considered you on this occasion for this type of accelerated mill and pave program? Now, that is not to say that, and Mrs. Cherry would tell you, he's been busy in the other islands, accessing work in the other islands. And therefore, I'm not even sure that if we were to put things in place now, that he is in a position to start work tomorrow, because he cannot supply the asphalt. And he will have to tell you, Mr. Ellis, now, and the rest of Barbados, if he's in a position, if I call on him tomorrow, if he can start to mobilize without any funds from the Ministry of Public Works. But it is disingenuous, sir, to create an impression that we are trying to stop Black businesses in this country, that we are empowering a particular entities in this country. You know, I come from a construction background. My father was in real estate and also in construction. And I understand the difficulties and the challenges of persons having to mobilize monies in this country when they do not have the capital. And my ministry will tell you that I am forever trying to make sure that there is equality across the board with all contractors. Anybody who works in the ministry, if they call me in the middle of the night, I am on the ball trying to tell the officers we need to make sure people are paid. So I am really a little concerned as to what has gone out there. And I think Mr. Cherry needs to explain why he is taking this position when we know for a fact that he has not been in a position to step forward and to readily accept any of the offers that have been made by the ministry in the past.
In the past. And just let me, before I get his comment, let me clarify what was said here. You said that based on previous experience, he was unable to provide the asphalt. And therefore, when the decision was taken to have this accelerated program, he wasn't approached based upon the previous experience. Is that correct?
That is correct, because it was an
Okay.
accelerated mill and pave. Again, the two criteria was that the entities needed to be in a position to immediately start works. You are seeing works taking place across the country. Up to this morning, we've got another set of roads that have been completed in terms of paving. These contractors have mobilized without any funds in their pocket. And while I made the comment a few days ago that we had already done about a third of the road works, that has been without mobilization. So if Mr. Cherry is able to start tomorrow, let us go. Tell me and I will assign the roads.
My
But it is
only
not fair
my
in
only
this
observation
forum.
my only observation on that would be okay, so if you had approached me 4 months ago
6 months, David. 6 months.
or 6 months, right? If you approached me 6 months ago and I said to you I couldn't do it then, it doesn't stand to reason that I can't do it now. So I would think the fair thing to do would be to say, give me a chance and say, look, can you do it now? Are you able to do it? If he's asking for mobilization for the asphalt,
Ellis, he has been
ma'am.
communicated with up to January. And the program started in January. It was announced by the Prime Minister.
Okay, Mr.
David.
So
Cherry,
what I'm saying is, on this current program that the contractors are doing, there has been no mobilization. Okay, and Mr. Cherry expressed clearly the concern on the asphalt that he required mobilization because
That was-
obviously his hands are in a number of things, and I don't know if this is an attempt for us to make sure that we help mobilize on his other projects.
Okay.
But I am concerned that trying to convey an impression that we are somehow trying to unfair him is not accurate. It is not fair to the ministry, and it's not fair to the people who have been communicating with him, including myself, to convey such an impression, and he must know better.
Mr. Cherry?
Deputy Prime Minister, based on what you just said, is this a strategy that is being used so that the small black man cannot get work? Let me explain.
There is no such strategy, Mr. Cherry.
Let me explain. You just said that my government started an accelerated milling program in January to spend $30 million of the people coffers, and you decide to spend $30 million in that short space of time that you now decide.
But Mr. Cherry, there have been other opportunities under the CAF program which have been advertised, which you have not applied for.
Minister,
Deputy Prime Minister,
hold on.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Let's in all fairness here, let's try to keep this a civil and respectful conversation with each other, please. All right?
Deputy Prime Minister, I was saying, if that is a strategy that is being used, it's not fair. Let me go.
But let's deal with some specifics that she put to you. She said, she said, hold on, Mr. Cherry. She said that you were unable in the past to respond to the request for asphalt on a quick basis, and that you wanted mobilization for the asphalt. For that reason, the government did not come to you on this occasion.
I'm going to forward to you the letter that the ministry requested for the 3 contractors and the response that I made. I was very specific because it was just asking for suggestions, and I knew that strategy that was coming. So I specifically asked the question, and I think that we should publish the letters tomorrow. Good. Number 2, banks doesn't sell kerosene oil, lard oil, nor butter. Banks is in the business of lending money. I'm in the business of borrowing. So if I had the opportunity and say, Cherry, we starting a milling program, we're going to give you $10 million out of the $30 million. And if I wanted only $1 million, David, you don't think that a bank will let me, or I could look on my pillow and find it? Come on. Deputy Prime Minister, that's not fair. But listen to me. You're speaking not only to Anderson Cherry because it's not about me. If we were able to galvanize over $10 million to buy equipment and an asphalt plant, you don't think we could find money to buy bitumen and Same
Mr.
fact. But no,
Ellis,
Deputy Prime
Yes,
Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, please. I'm
just hold on.
saying what you're saying is not fair. Why didn't you or your government divided this contract in three and give everybody a player? So what you may have done is divided in two and then give it to those same companies and they went and borrow the $15 million because they could. They got a written guarantee from you. It's not fair what you have done to us, your brothers and sisters. It's not fair, Deputy Prime Minister. Please, man. Please.
Mr. Ellis, in
Yes.
an attempt, I hope
Yeah.
Mr. Cherry has finished as well. So
Yes,
let me
Minister.
just respond
Minister.
to his comments, right?
Yes.
Mr. Cherry should also indicate whether he has applied for any of the other works on the bonfire system, which is a system that government uses for procurement, for any of the other roads that we have done. Because my recollection and my understanding, and subject to correction, is that he has not done so. And there have been other opportunities to apply for other roads under the CAF projects prior to the start of this Mill and Pave program, which Anderson Cherry has not applied for. So that's one. The second thing is, as it relates to the other contractors, I understand that the mention was made, I think, of Brathwaite's Construction. And I know for a fact that they have indicated to the ministry that they could not start to do any of the Mill and Pave or anything until after the start of the next financial year, which is in April. Now, I am hopeful that given the pace at which we have been moving with respect to this program, that they too will be in a position to have their plant up and running, to be able to take advantage of the works, because as you saw, Prime Minister has basically provided us through Ministry of Finance with an additional $5 million. I am also hopeful that we can open up to other contractors, because there are a few others who have also indicated to our office that at least 3 players in the market will be ready by the start of the next financial year. So again, there are other companies who understand what accelerated Mill and Pave is, and who also understand that there are other opportunities for them to participate in road building exercises within the Ministry of Transport and Works. To try to single this out, to make this seem as though we are in some way unfairing a class of persons, is simply not accurate. It is not accurate.
The only thing that I would query here is the fact that from what you have said, you didn't come back to them to say, look, you were unable to participate earlier, but here's another opportunity with this accelerated program. Are you in a better position to respond? No. So it seemed to me as though a decision was taken that in as much as they were not ready previously, an assumption was made that they would not be ready now. That's what comes across.
I would say this to you, Alice. I think that in as I said earlier, in January, when the communication would have been made with Mr. Cherry, it was clear that he was not in a position to be able to supply asphalt. So that's one. Secondly, he will have to tell you why he has not applied for any of the other works under the ministry's programs to be able to do milling and paving for other roadworks programs. Because if this plant is operational, if he has all of his I's dotted and his T's crossed and he is ready to go from tomorrow, he should also be able to tell you now if he can supply asphalt tomorrow, where he awarded a contract, and if he has everything in place, both in terms of mobilization on his own, to be able to start those works, because he hasn't answered those questions.
Minister,
you want to answer those questions, and once you've answered the question, I want to hear from Mr. Robinson as well.
Minister, with all due respect, you're speaking, and you're speaking to the entire Barbados listening to you. You're telling me, and you're telling Mr. Robinson, and you're telling 26 other Black companies who hasn't had a paving job for the last 4 to 5 years, and all of their equipment is parked, rotting down, that if we can start tomorrow, Mrs. Brathwaite, I think you're insulting us
But
further.
I am not even sure.
But please, let me just finish. With all due respect to you, man, we are here hurting. We have no money. We cannot get our workers pay. Mr. Robinson House get sell. I about to get sell out too. And we are begging you to pay us, and you're now insulting us and telling us we can start tomorrow. Let me explain. Ms. Brathwaite.
She's Bradshaw, you know. She's
my head is hurting. Miss Bradshaw, if it's one thing that I'm no fool by no stretch of the imagination. And you're speaking to the public of Barbados, to us, the 98% of us. Remember, we are all listening to you. Ma'am.
Can you start tomorrow?
Let's go back.
Could you start next week? Could you mobilize in a hurry?
David, I want to answer it this way. To pave a road or to mill a road, you need to mill. You need to buy at least $200,000 or $300,000 in bitumen. If a house gets sold by one of my brothers, if I am on the track, how can I mobilize? If Miss Bradshaw also said that I message her every morning and every night, as she responds, she honestly does respond every day, and I have utmost respect for her because she don't shy away from my messages. 90% of the messages is begging for me to get paid. If I was paid 2 years ago, I could have mobilized. I can't mobilize tomorrow, ma'am. So I answered that question. But please, can you pay me today? And yes, if I get paid today, I'll be able to mobilize tomorrow.
A major part of this is that the government owes some of you money, and you don't get your money on time.
David, it dried up. And not only the money dried up from coming, the work dried up too. And this is, I believe, David, you could have answered all the questions. She know that I can't mobilize tomorrow. Why? Because I ain't got the money. But you know, I hide in the open. I come and say up front, I ain't got the money. So she knows that. And every Barbadian knows that because I ain't got the money. Also, Miss Bradshaw just said that they owe me money. Ain't me, it's she. Because I would never come and tell my government, I would never do that. But ma'am, please, can I be paid tomorrow so I can mobilize the next day? And yes, if I get paid, me and my brothers could work. Please help us.
So
please help us. Even if you just give me $1 million out of what's outstanding, just please. Yes, I can mobilize tomorrow. Give me it today and I can mobilize tomorrow.
Mr. Robinson, you have been...
And I
hold
would
on,
bring along Mr. Robinson and other 26 with me.
Mr. Robinson has been quiet all along. Do you have anything to add to this conversation here with the minister, the deputy prime minister?
Well, no, I have absolutely nothing to ask the deputy prime minister. I remain silent as I am. Nobody asked me nothing on. After I don't think I got any reason to ask anything right now. So go ahead, Mr. Ellis, I'm listening.
David, yeah. And this is the problem. Because I know I will be victimized today and tomorrow. Mr. Robinson, he can't speak. Much of what they can't speak. You know why? Because we get hurt when we do it.
Well, David, you know, David, the minister says that there are other aspects David, of the road program that you can apply for.
David,
do you have?
Please ask the prime minister where does it advertise. Ask any Barbadian if they ever see them in the paper. Where all
it advertises on the bonfire system, and any road contractor who is in the business of building roads is aware of the system, and so that is what concerns me. No, Mr. Ellis, he has spoken. Allow me the opportunity to respond. Sure. Okay. No. Again, to convey an impression that we are trying to deny contractors their monies that are due to them could not be farther from the truth. As Mr. Sherry says, anytime he asks me a question regarding anything that has been owed to him, I have checked the files, made sure that if there are payments due, and that those payments can be accurately confirmed, that those monies are owed, that Mr. Cherry has been paid. Now, where there are discrepancies, where there are concerns by the ministry about the quantum of what is being claimed versus what our quantity surveyors are able, when they assess, to be able to verify has actually been accurately done, is a whole different story. And Mr. Cherry is well aware that there are many scenarios in the ministry where what has been claimed cannot, in some cases, from the ministry's end, certainly be quantified as having been done. Now, those are ongoing, hold on, those are ongoing disputes between the ministry. I can't speak for any other ministry, but since I have been the minister, there has been an ongoing dispute over a number of invoices submitted. Up to just last week, I received invoices from 2021, 2022 from Mr. Cherry in relation to not road building and road construction, but in relation to boulders, in relation to, I think it was retention ponds and a whole bunch of other things. Now, he needs to get his accounting system in order as well, because these are the types of discrepancies that I'm sure are plaguing his business in such a way that he is obviously cash-strapped. But to put the onus on MTW or on this minister is totally unfounded. And I will continue to push back on it, sir, because I do not think it is fair. It is
But
not
it's
fair to my
reasonable,
officers.
Minister.
And it is not fair to me. Sorry, Mr. Ellis. And he has also responded to you on the approach on the other programs, which are the other road programs that he could have applied for. And I've directed him to apply for the other projects as well. Now, if he applied for some of the works on the CAF, there is a mobilization that comes in relation to those. The truth is that the other contractors oftentimes can mobilize without obviously having the funds paid from MTW. But there is a provision for those works to be done by entities that require a mobilization. The accelerated program, if I had known that the Prime Minister was giving me 30 million, I would have been in a better position perhaps to have been able to coordinate with all contractors and to ask people to get their milling material and their asphalt plants up and running. But it is for the work. It was not called mill and pave. It was called accelerated mill and pave for a reason. And therefore it was to be treated with a degree of urgency, because we obviously recognize that the rainy season has prevented us from being able to carry out a lot of the works. We wanted to take advantage of the dry weather. And obviously the Prime Minister indicated as well that she had additional fiscal space. And so while in some cases it may feel as though they have been taken by surprise, the truth is that many of them did say to us they do not have the equipment ready to go to be able to start up their plants or to be able to purchase
So
the
you would
bitumen right away.
concede, therefore, Minister, that this urgent approach turned out to be disadvantageous to some of the players because they would not have had the necessary financing to be able to respond in such a short period.
I would say that it has been advantageous to the country as a whole because we have taken advantage of this dry season.
But disadvantageous
Hold on. To contractors who are in the business of road building, there are plenty opportunities to work with MTW during the year to be able to do other roads. And if you take, for instance, Yorkshire Road, Rockdundo, Prior Park, Fustic Village, all of these are roads under CAF that Mr. Cherry and any other road builder who is serious about what they are doing and has plants that are operational can enter the market and bid like anybody else.
So I'm going to go further. They are further disadvantaged by the fact that the government owes them money that they cannot get on the kind of timely basis that they desire it. So if you come with a program that has just been put on the table because the Prime Minister has just discovered that she's got fiscal space and that sort of thing, they're going to be in a position where they cannot easily respond, and it is the people who have deep pockets that will be able to do so.
But I think in fairness, Mr. Ellis, I think the disadvantage has to be looked at in two different ways. There is a disadvantage when there are contractors who from the taxpayers, when it could be going to other things like road building. And I think that is the issue that needs to also be dealt with frontally, because if a quantity surveyor, when they assess the works that a contractor has been claiming, that is not able to verify those works, and the contractor then comes on radio and says that he is owed money by the ministry, without saying that something is in dispute, that is not fair also. That is disadvantageous to the Ministry of Public Works and to the government. It is not fair.
Somebody is saying that the mill and pave was not put on the bonfire system. The ministry doesn't have a QS, only technicians, and they have refused to fill the vacant post for years.
It is, well, there's a lot to be done in MTW in relation to the filling of positions. That is why we've had to outsource the work in terms of the supervisory consultancy for this as well as for the Complant project, because we didn't have, as you know, with the issues with the fiscal space, we couldn't bring on a number of persons to be able to fill those positions in the last few years. Okay, as it relates to the mill and pave, it is an accelerated program. So given the urgency, it would not have been advertised within the bonfire system. But what I referred to on bonfire would have actually been the CAF program, which is there for everybody to be able to go in to determine if they're interested in applying for the CAF works, which Mr. Cherry and others would have been able to get their mobilization if they so desired. And those works, and many of those works are $1 million, $2 million, they can be $4 million. So they are not minor works by any stretch of the administration of the imagination. They are actually works that are fairly substantial, and they have the opportunity to be able to go forward as well to apply for those. And they can still do so because we still have CAF roads to be done as well. There's also an opportunity, I will say this as well, under the Complant program as well, the Scotland District Road Rehabilitation Project, which is the meeting actually that I came out of to address this. They are also in the process of awarding contracts. It's not the ministry, they do the bill of quantities. And if Mr. Cherry and others are interested in carrying out works, they can also be part of the tendering under that process under Complant. So there is $230 million in works to be done.
So wait,
we have already
Mr.
started.
Cherry, Mr. Cherry, quickly, I got another contractor who's come online. But Mr. Cherry, tell me, why is it that you haven't applied for any of that work?
I'll answer it this way. Mr. Robinson, I want to ask you a question. Do you know anything about bonfire?
Don't know anything about it. Absolutely nothing.
David, I want you to ask any contractor, or David, do you know about bonfire?
The only bonfire you know about.
David is the norm. Mr. Ellis and Minister Bradshaw, it is the norm to see advertisement in the newspaper. And every Barbadian
but you know about Mr. Cherry, you know about the bonfire system because you applied for it.
Hold on a minute. Listen, hold on.
The asphalt program.
Both of you, give me a second. Give me a second here. Hold on a minute. Mr. Cherry, hold on. Troy Williams, you wanted to make an intervention in this conversation. What is your intervention?
Good morning, Mr. Ellis. I want to wish you a happy birthday, first of all. And I want to say good morning to the Deputy Prime Minister and the listeners and your panel. Just a minute to express and explain myself a bit, because having not graduated from secondary school, let me try to put it as basic as we would say in layman terms. From all that I have heard and all that I have seen, and from my standpoint, I think one of the disadvantages of working for government, my company, Williams Tools and Equipment Rentals, who have done extensive work for a number of ministries, what I find is that when you are engaged to do work for government and you get a mobilization fee in most cases because you sign contracts and so forth, generally if you have a contract that's supposed to take 90 days, you would be mobilized your 10%, and you would do more than 50% of the work, and still at the 90-day completion, it's very difficult to be paid. Let me give you an example. We would have started a job for the same said MTW in January of 1 year. I think it was 2000 and can't remember the exact year, but we would have started a job in January, and our first payment, I can remember, it was in December, the 24th of December, and Christmas was the 25th, the Saturday. And that payment came through about 6 o'clock in the evening. I said to myself, that was a Merry Christmas for me. But the reality is that there's a lot of work out there being done. We see it all over Barbados, we acknowledge it. But the problem is that when you engage a small contractor, we are squeezing our cash flows. The banks is difficult not to get the money, but to repay the money. So when we borrow a loan and we default on our loans because of cash flow purposes, then they really don't want to see us. What we have done is that we've come together as a group, and each person put together their resources. Persons would have signed their houses, persons would have put together everything that they had. according to people, the last cent that we would have put together in the attempt to mobilize or capitalize us for us to get the projects done. If given the opportunities, the same way that there's $30 million in work, if a set of contractors were given $10 million and a $1 million mobilization, it is then obvious that we are able then to mobilize our machines and our resources. And the same way that we would start a project with a 10% and wait a very long period to be paid, periods probably in excess of a year, and not exaggerating, if it is put in place for us to be paid in a timely manner, then we are able to produce and probably even produce better than the so-called big contractors, because then we have the financial resources, we have the work out there that is there that has to be done, but we need better facilitation. And I think that this problem can be solved with the powers that be coming to the table and see how it's best to facilitate us contractors. Because like Mr. Cherry and others, we are suffering. We cannot pay our bills. We cannot pay our employees. We pay our employees late. We can't, our suppliers, everybody basically has us under tremendous pressure because of the cash flow situation. I think that if we come to the table and we go by a case basis, we say this is $1 million in work, this project could be completed in 60 days, we set proper terms and conditions in terms of financial resources, there is no doubt of our ability to produce. We have produced on many projects, but the problem comes when we are unable to be paid on time, and it puts us under tremendous pressure.
Deputy Prime Minister, that sounds like a reasonable argument. What do you say?
I have no difficulty, David, meeting with any contractor. And again, just to go back, Mr. Cherry calls me all the time, and wherever I'm able to facilitate, and he's not the only one. Whoever calls and they say they have a concern, I haven't heard from either of the other two on the call at the moment, but I know Mr. Cherry, whenever he calls, I have tried my best to resolve it, because I have a saying at the start of all of my meetings that the contractors need oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you're not going to be able to breathe. You're not going to be able to pay your staff.
That oxygen is to be paid on time, and that oxygen is to be able to get mobilization funds for major projects. So you better appreciate why Mr. Cherry was saying to you that for the asphalt, he needed money for mobilization.
Not for the asphalt. For the asphalt, we don't traditionally pay for mobilization for asphalt. If it is and in the case of the accelerated mill and pave, not ordinary road works, but accelerated, because of the timeline and because it was an accelerated program, there was actually no provision for the mobilization of any monies. So the contractors have been working without.
So he and other small contractors would be unable to respond.
Yes, correct. But it's not that they couldn't have responded to other roadworks programs, and I think that is the point that is being missed.
I heard you on that. I heard you talk about that, but at the same time, what is before us right now is a $30 million project, and anybody who's brought in equipment.
CAF Ellis is 50 million, and the Complant project is 230 million.
Okay, but I gotta make a transition to the news here.
Let us hold. We're gonna hold on. Minister Bradshaw gonna hold on with me.
Minister Bradshaw is taking a break from her meeting, so let's.
I will leave you by saying, Mr. Ellis, that I am more than prepared to meet with Mr. Cherry to see if we can find a way around this, or any other player that is in a position to do so, as I have always done. But I do not want that anybody believes that there are not more issues than what he has presented.